I never wanted to own Maxwell Industries. Growing up, all I wanted was to work alongside my father, helping him run the company he'd built from the ground up. But life has a way of changing our plans, especially when family is involved. My name is Diana Maxwell, and this is the story of how I lost everything, only to gain so much more. The day my father died, I was reviewing quarterly reports in my office at Maxwell Industries. At 26, I was already the company's chief operations officer, having worked my way up from the warehouse floor. Dad believed in earning your position, not inheriting it. Ms. Maxwell, my assistant's voice trembled through the intercom. You need to come quickly. Your father? I don't remember running to the parking garage. I don't remember the drive to the hospital. I only remember arriving too late. Heart attack, they said. Quick and unexpected. He hadn't suffered. I stood in that sterile hospital hallway, trying to process that my father, my mentor, my best friend, was gone. That's when I heard my Uncle James's voice. Where is she? Where's Diana? Uncle James had always been the opposite of my father. Where Dad was innovative and forward-thinking, James was traditional and rigid. Where Dad believed in merit, James believed in hierarchy. And where Dad saw my potential, James saw only his brother's daughter playing at business. He rounded the corner with my cousins, Michael and Stephen, in tow. They were already wearing their metaphorical vulture feathers. Diana. James's voice carried false sympathy. Such a tragedy. Have you spoken to the lawyers yet? I shook my head, still numb. He just died, Uncle James. I haven't even called Mom yet. Of course, he nodded, but his eyes were calculating. But the company, we need to think about stability. Leadership. Even in my grief, I understood what was happening. Maxwell Industries has leadership. I'm COO. I know every aspect of the business. Michael, my older cousin, smirked. Come on, Diana. You can't seriously think you can run the company. I've been running daily operations for 2 years, I shot back. Dad was grooming me to take over. Your father was sentimental, James cut in smoothly. The board needs experienced leadership. Someone who understands the old ways of doing business. The old ways. Dad had fought against those for years. The outdated contracts, the resistant to change mentality, the boys' club atmosphere that permeated the industry. He'd been pushing for modernization, for digital transformation. Just like I had. The next few weeks were a blur of funeral arrangements and legal meetings. I threw myself into work, trying to maintain the stability Dad had always prioritized. But James was already making moves. He called an emergency board meeting. I sat at the conference table, watching as he presented his case for temporary leadership transition during this difficult time. The vote wasn't even close. It's for the best, Diana, James said afterward, his voice drooping with condescension. You're young, inexperienced. The company needs a steady hand. I cleaned out my office that evening, packing away 7 years of memories. My first project proposal. The innovation award Dad had presented to me last year. Photos of us at company events. Michael leaned against my doorframe watching. No hard feelings, cousin. But let's be honest, you're not qualified to run a company this size. I looked up at him, at his smug expression. And you are. I have an MBA, he shrugged. More importantly, I have the right connections, the right background. The right? Well, everything. Everything except my father's vision. Everything except actual experience running the company. Everything except the innovation and drive that had made Maxwell Industries a leader in the industry. Stephen appeared behind his brother. Don't worry, Diana. We'll find you something. Maybe in HR. That's more suitable for a woman? I finished, my voice ice cold. They didn't even have the decency to deny it. I walked out of Maxwell Industries that night with a cardboard box of belongings and a fire burning in my chest. But I also walked out with something they didn't know about, years of industry knowledge, client relationships, and most importantly, an intimate understanding of where Maxwell Industries was vulnerable. That night, I sat in my apartment staring at my father's last gift to me, a leather-bound notebook filled with his business wisdom and ideas. Inside the cover, he'd written, Remember, Diana, sometimes losing your way is the first step to finding your destiny. I opened my laptop and began to write. Not a resignation letter, they'd already forced that. Not an angry email that would come later when they realized what they'd lost. No, I wrote a business plan. Uncle James thought I wasn't qualified to run a company. Fine. I'd build my own. Dad had always said the industry was ripe for disruption. The old guard was too set in their ways, too resistant to change. Maxwell Industries, under James's leadership, would be no different. I called Marcus Chen, my father's old friend who'd retired from venture capital 3 years ago. "Deanna," he answered despite the late hour. "I heard about the board meeting. Those bastards." "Marcus," I cut straight to the point. "Remember when you said Dad's ideas about industry modernization were ahead of their time? I'm ready to make them reality." There was a pause, then a chuckle. "How much do you need?" $5 million to start. I have a complete breakdown of exactly where every dollar will go. Another pause. "That's a lot of money, Diana. It's exactly what we need to build the right platform and hire the right team. In 3 years, we'll be worth 10 times that. In 5 years, we'll be able to buy Maxwell Industries outright." I could almost hear him smiling through the phone. "You sound just like your father. Bold. Confident. Is that a yes?" "It's a yes, but on one condition." "Name it." "When you buy Maxwell Industries," and notice I said when, not if, "I want to be there to see your uncle's face." I thought about James's condescending smile, Michael's smug certainty, Stephen's dismissive attitude. Deal. The next morning, I registered Novus Solutions Incorporated. The name was simple. Novus, meaning new in Latin. Because that's what I was going to bring to the industry, a new way of doing business. I hired carefully, picking up talented people who had been overlooked or undervalued at traditional companies like Maxwell. Together, we built something revolutionary, a digital platform that would transform how the industry operated. Meanwhile, I kept tabs on Maxwell Industries through industry contacts. James' steady hand was exactly as innovative as I'd expected. Within 6 months, they'd lost 2 major contracts to more technologically advanced competitors. Within a year, their market share had dropped by 20%. But I wasn't interested in watching them fail. I was too busy succeeding. By the end of our 2nd year, Novus had expanded to 3 international offices. Our client list included companies that Maxwell Industries had been chasing for years. Our proprietary software platform was being hailed as a game changer. "Deanna," Marcus said during one of our quarterly meetings, "you've built something remarkable here. Your valuation is already at $70 million. I nodded, but my eyes were on a different number on the screen. Maxwell Industries' declining stock price. "They're struggling," Marcus noted, following my gaze. "James is looking for investors, but nobody's biting, not with their outdated systems and resistance to change." "How long?" I asked. "At this rate, they'll be ripe for acquisition in about 3 years. Sooner if the next quarter is as bad as analysts predict." I smiled, thinking of Michael's words on my last day. "You're not qualified to run a company this size." "Perfect," I said. "Everything's right on schedule." 5 years after being forced out of Maxwell Industries, I sat in my corner office at Novus Solutions headquarters, reviewing the final details of our latest acquisition. The city skyline stretched out before me, a far cry from the modest office space where we'd started. Novus had exceeded even my ambitious projections. We weren't just successful. We were revolutionizing the industry. The old guard companies were scrambling to keep up with our innovations and failing miserably. My assistant Jennifer knocked on my door. "Ms. Maxwell, you're going to want to see this." She placed the morning's financial report on my desk. Maxwell Industries stock had plummeted 60% overnight. "What happened?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Your uncle's latest innovation," Jennifer said with a knowing smile. "He'd invested $40 million in outdated technology against the board's recommendations. The system failed spectacularly during implementation. They've lost 5 major clients already." I leaned back in my chair, thinking of all the times Uncle James had dismissed my ideas about modernization as risky and untested. "The board is calling an emergency meeting," Jennifer continued. "Word is they're looking for a buyer before the company loses any more value." I picked up my phone and dialed Marcus's number. When he answered, I said only 2 words. "It's time." The next month was a carefully orchestrated dance. Through a series of shell companies and quiet negotiations, Novus began acquiring Maxwell Industries stock. We kept our name out of it. I didn't want James or my cousins getting wind of who was really behind the purchase. Then came the day I'd been planning for 5 years. Maxwell Industries had called an all-hands meeting to announce a potential buyout. The company's situation was dire. Their stock was in free fall. Clients were leaving in droves, and James's failed technology investment had burned through their cash reserves. I walked into the Maxwell Industries headquarters for the first time since my forced resignation. The security guard didn't recognize me, he was new. But as I made my way to the conference room, I saw familiar faces doing double takes. Was that Diana Maxwell? What was she doing here? The main conference room was packed. Uncle James stood at the front, looking aged and defeated. Michael and Stephen sat in the front row, their usual smugness replaced by barely concealed panic. As you all know, James began, Maxwell Industries has been facing some challenges. We've been in talks with a potential buyer who can help stabilize our situation. Michael shifted uncomfortably. I knew this must be killing him. The company he'd helped drive into the ground was about to be sold to strangers. The buyer's representatives are here today, James continued. I'd like to introduce. That was my cue. I stood up from my seat in the back row and walked to the front of the room. The click of my heels against the marble floor echoed in the sudden silence. James's face went from confused to shocked to horrified in the span of seconds. Diana, what are you doing here? Hello, Uncle James, I smiled. Or should I just call you James, since we're about to have a strictly professional relationship? Michael jumped to his feet. What is this? You can't be. The buyer? I finished for him. Actually, I am. Or more specifically, Novus Solutions is, and I'm the CEO. Steakin's coffee cup clattered to the floor. Novus Solutions? The tech company that's been revolutionizing the industry. The very same, I confirmed, taking my place at the podium. As of this morning, we own 51% of Maxwell Industries shares. The board approved the sale an hour ago. The room erupted in whispers. James stumbled back, gripping the edge of the table for support. I clicked to the first slide of my presentation, displaying Novus's impressive growth charts. For those concerned about your jobs, let me assure you, Novus believes in nurturing talent, not dismissing it based on outdated prejudices. Well, with 3 exceptions. My eyes met James's, then Michael's, then Stephen's. Effective immediately, all executive positions will be reviewed for qualification and merit. We'll be implementing a new organizational structure that emphasizes experience and proven success over family connections. Michael's face had gone from red to white. He remembered, I was sure, his last words to me, "You're not qualified to run a company this size." James finally found his voice. Diana, please, we're family. Family? I laughed softly. You didn't consider me family when you forced me out. When you dismissed everything I'd learned working here. When you threw away my father's legacy for your outdated ideas. I turned to the room at large. Maxwell Industries was once a leader in innovation. Under my father's leadership, this company pushed boundaries and set industry standards. That's the legacy I'm here to restore. After the meeting, as shell-shocked employees filed out, Michael approached my podium. You planned this, he accused, his voice shaking. All of it. No, Michael, I replied calmly. You did this. Every time you chose tradition over innovation, every time you dismissed new ideas for old habits, every time you put your ego ahead of what was best for the company, you built this moment. I'll fight this, he threatened. Uncle James will find a way. Your father just signed over controlling interests to save the company from bankruptcy, I pointed out. He doesn't have any moves left. But I'll tell you what, I'm feeling generous. You can either accept the severance package and leave quietly, or, he narrowed his eyes, or what? Or you can start in our entry-level position. Learn the business properly, like I did. Prove your worth through actual work, not your last name, your choice. James lingered behind as Michael stormed out. He looked lost in his own conference room. I never thought that the niece you discarded would end up owning your company? I finished for him. That's the problem, James. You stopped seeing potential a long time ago. I gathered my materials, then turned back to him. I'll see you at tomorrow's board meeting. Don't worry, I won't have security escort you out like you did to me. You can handle that on your own schedule. As I walked out of Maxwell Industries, now a subsidiary of Novus Solutions, I passed my old office. Through the window, I could see James and my cousins angrily packing their things, just as I had done 5 years ago. The difference was I had left with a plan. They were leaving with nothing but regret. Marcus was waiting in my car outside. "How did it feel?" he asked as I slid into the seat. I thought about James's face when he realized who now controlled his fate. About Michael's expression when he understood the true cost of their arrogance. About the years of hard work and dedication that had brought me to this moment. It felt. I paused, searching for the right word. It felt like justice. Just justice. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Not revenge. I shook my head, watching the Maxwell Industries building disappear in the rear-view mirror. Revenge is about making others suffer. This was about proving my worth, to them, to myself, to everyone who ever doubted what I could achieve. The next morning, I walked into my father's old office, my office now. I placed his leather-bound notebook on the desk and opened it to his final message. "Remembered, Diana, sometimes losing your way is the first step to finding your destiny." I smiled, running my fingers over his handwriting. "You were right, Dad. As always." I took down the old Maxwell Industries mission statement, the one James had insisted on keeping, and replaced it with a new one, combining the best of both companies. Because sometimes success isn't about destroying the old, but about building something better in its place. They had called me unqualified. But in the end, I hadn't just qualified to run a company. I had built an empire.